Close your eyes, shut your mouth, dream a dream and get us out. Dream, 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 dream. Hit the hay, fast asleep, dream a dream, you little bleep. Dream, 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 dream.
Hey everybody, it's Brendan here and welcome to another episode of Would You Like to Continue? At 10:59 p.m., after I finished editing and posting my short-form Patreon video, I asked myself, where do I want to be in the future? A very vague question, I know, and before I could really answer that, this idea for a podcast episode came to mind. And from my mind to my notes on my phone, from the phone to this episode. Almost 3 weeks later, and I'm finally recording this episode. The last 7 to 8 months has been pretty difficult for me in ways that I didn't expect and ways I did not expect at all. I had to make a quick move, me and my family, from South Florida to Central Florida, leave the youth pastor position that I loved so much. I love just being a youth pastor, helping out these students. I love the church that I was a part of. I was excited for its future and to be a part of its future. However, due to certain circumstances, things kind of collapsed in on themselves. Things went very quick, left on good terms, but it was a very spontaneous, quick move from South Florida to Central Florida. To help ease the transition, I thought about all the positives, all the potential, being closer to family, the relationships that have been long distance, and now excited that I get to hang out with these friends and people that I consider to be family. I thought about how we can invest in those relationships and create great experiences together. The finances was another thing, and so I was really looking forward to this new chapter in my life, in my family's life. Unfortunately, it was rough. The transition was rough. The beginning was rough. The months were rough. And after a hodgepodge of emotions, of frustrations, of anger, of disappointment, of hopelessness, of being a cynic, I used it all to give me a push in the direction that I wanted to go, in a direction that I felt like I had more control over, versus just waiting for things to go well for me. So my faith in God was very much tested, especially because of the journey that I just went through, of going through a Christian university, interning, and just the long weeks, the late nights, the putting in the work and believing that this is all going to pay off. And then now being moved into an environment where I felt very secluded, I felt very isolated. And one of the only things that I found comforting, aside from my wife and my kid, was my mind, the creativity, the dreams that I had. As a kid, I can gratefully say I had what I needed, right? I had what was essential, but you always kind of want more, whether you realize it or not. And my imagination helped delivered in that more category. My imagination led me to create my own toys out of paper, draw these different worlds and stories that I wanted to experience that I just couldn't. And I'm very, very grateful for the mind God has blessed me with. I'm very grateful for the imagination that He has put in me. I remember on Saturday mornings I would watch shows like Sonic the Hedgehog or some other 4Kids or WB shows, and during the commercials I would draw my own characters and imagine my character being a part of those worlds that I would watch that I loved so much. And as I get older and think back to when I was a kid, I'm very inspired by my childhood. I'm very inspired by Kid Brandon and how he went about life and the worlds that he lived in every day, but no one else was able to really see. And now that I'm older, I have more opportunity, way more opportunity, so many more resources, and what seems to be not as much time, but I have, again, a lot more opportunity, a lot more resources. It's exciting that I can really just utilize that to bring some of my dreams, some of these imaginations and worlds to life. There was this one summer that I remember where my mom worked at a daycare and I was able to attend it with her. And I would get the computer paper in that area that we would hang out in with they had like all these cubbies with all kinds of stuff, arts and crafts stuff, toys and all that. But I would get the paper and I would fold it together, staple it, and make my own comics. The thing was, I didn't really grow up with comics. Not until I got older that I bought my own. My parents never bought me a comic before. But I liked the medium. I liked the stories. That was like the closest thing to creating something visually that I can be a part of, that I can witness, that I can be excited about, bringing it from my mind to real life. Another thing very similar to that was I would get sticky notes or even just make my own sticky notes because I didn't have any. And I would make flip books of just characters fighting, stick figures going at it and just doing martial arts and all that stuff. And the sticky note and the comic book didn't really influence the direction that I was heading because God impacted my life so great, in such a great way, that I pursued that. I pursued church, I pursued ministry, and I don't have any regrets for doing that necessarily. But during the last 7-8 months, there were multiple regrets. There was multiple what ifs. What if I went this route instead of that route? Why didn't I pursue this or that? The church that I went to in middle school and high school was Assemblies of God Church, and they have this event called Fine Arts. And Fine Arts is where all those Assemblies of God churches, youth groups come together, and it's like one big talent show, but for the specific categories, such as short sermons, there's vocals, there's band instrument stuff, there's art stuff, there's digital design, there's pictures, photography, there's a whole bunch of categories. And for some reason, for the 4 years that I did fine arts, I didn't do any graphic design. I didn't do any film. I didn't do any drawing. And those are talents now. I guess they're probably more talents than they were before, but those were things I was interested in. Those were hobbies that I had. Instead, I did short sermon. I did spoken word just to try it out. And I did dabble in like group stuff, like drama and all that, human video. And I wish I would have done those other ones. I wish I would have done the ones that made sense for Brandon. I wish I would have started earlier in pursuing dreams. But the dreams that I'm talking about are the ones that I haven't attained yet. Because I've reached the dreams that I desired so much when I was younger. I really wanted to be happily married to the person that I thought would be the one, which that's a whole other conversation of itself of is there one, is there not, and what that looks like. And by the grace of God, I was able to obtain that. There's a whole awesome story there about how my wife and I met each other and how we got married and just how God provided so much and I was able to obtain that dream. But as humans, oh man, we can suck so bad because once we achieve something or receive something, we just move on to the next thing and we don't really celebrate those victories or revisit those victories to put a smile on our face. But then you also hear about like people who only hold on to those past victories and that's the only thing that really brings them joy or happiness or sense of value instead of moving on to the next thing. So I believe there's supposed to be a balance there, but I don't know where that balance is. The dream of being a dad, and by the grace of God, I am a father to a healthy 2-year-old girl at the time of this recording. And I'm so grateful for her. I'm so in love with her. I didn't know I can love a person as much as I do until I had my daughter. And she's a huge inspiration for the graphic novel that I'm currently working on at the time of this recording, Breath of Kin. God and my family have been tremendous influences, tremendous waves of influence and inspiration for these creative dreams that I have, which these creative dreams that I'm pursuing them because I want to do them. They're fun. I enjoy doing it. And I'm excited to see it go from my head to a physical piece of paper that I can flip through and that I can see in possibly, in stores and in other people's hands and hear stories about other people being impacted by it. I'm excited to hear from people being inspired and encouraged by these podcast episodes. I'm excited to hear other people be encouraged and inspired by the streaming that I'll do, get back into that. So I like helping people and I love helping people through my talents, through my hobbies, through things that I enjoy. It's just like an overwhelming sensation of joy, especially because there aren't many Christians or that I'm aware of that are using these other forms of mediums to impact and help others, to show them the love of Jesus Christ, because I feel like we can get so fixated on just the traditional means versus these other ones. Like when it came to fine arts, that's a really great idea, but I never really heard in church of people trying to push them to pursue a career in that talent. Like, okay, you did a 3D art piece out of, I don't know, like paper mache. Then you're like, oh my gosh, that's so beautiful, that's so awesome. And then that's it until fine art season comes around again. It's not so much of, hey, have you ever thought about being an artist? I know they don't pay well, so it's going to most likely start off as a side thing, but you could probably make some really encouraging and, awesome pieces to put in people's homes as godly reminders, right? Like go on Etsy or some other website to release that stuff. Never have I ever heard conversations in that nature, in that vein, or like, hey, you're a really good singer. Aside from just, hey, join the worship team, but do you ever feel like you can create music? Maybe we can explore that, maybe we can get you more singing lessons. And you can probably enter that space versus it's just a random hobby. And maybe the reason why we don't talk about that extra stuff is because it doesn't come off as realistic. It doesn't come off as something that has a high return financially, high return emotionally or mentally, just maybe because a lot of people just don't get it. Hobbies tend to be very niche, while work, everyone needs to work. You need to work to provide. To work is biblical. And I'm not saying we shouldn't work. We most definitely should work. But why not try to find a way to monetize your hobbies, your dreams, So therefore, there's this quote that I've heard that I like to believe in, and this is something up for debate, but it's, if you do what you love, then you never have to work a day in your life. And I'm not saying when you get to do what you love, you'll never have a bad day. I believe bad days will always come and you'll have your high moments and your low moments. But I feel that if you die knowing that you pursued something that you loved and you didn't die feeling like a slave, how much more fulfilling will it feel as you fade away? These creative projects, these dreams that I'm excited to work on, that I'm excited to just put all this effort and energy in, and excited to see it come into fruition and the next steps that can come from it, I feel as if they're ropes of faith that help pull me out of the pits that I can find myself spiraling into. Visually, I see these like golden, glowing, like it's like light ropes that are just pulling me out of these places and these spots of just feeling you can't really do much, that you're very limited and you're just stuck. And it's been challenging these past 7 to 8 months because I feel alone. Not so much now, but I felt alone. I felt as if all these people who seemed to be in my corner just vanished and were no longer there. I felt very cynical, and it gave me time to process a lot of different emotions and thoughts and different events in my life that have been years since they've come and gone, since they've passed, and it just put me in a weird state. And I had a lot of conversations with some friends and some family members and trying to process through all this stuff, and I felt horrible because I was realizing all this hurt, and I was realizing that I'm hurting people. So as I was navigating through my hurt, I was hurting others, and it's this weird pressure, and it's this weird cycle that's like a spaghetti mess to actually explain. But just know it's a storm of emotions, a storm of feelings, and a storm of thoughts. But with this storm of being set out in the middle of the sea, of the ocean, while this thing's going crazy, that's the visual. And pair this up with this. There was this quote that a good friend of mine, a new friend, I should say, had shared with me, was one that really spoke to him. It's an older gentleman who's been through a lot, who's experienced a lot, and he said that when the waves take a hold of you, when the tide consumes you, instead of trying to fight, instead of trying to find your way of where is up, just relax, let go, let yourself float, because you're going to float up. And that's when that's where you need to swim towards. That's so empowering. That's where I feel like I'm at now. I'm trying to learn to float, and now that I'm floating, I'm getting a better idea of what direction to swim to, because I've been struggling to find out whether I should go back into full-time ministry or if I should just pursue this dream of like full-time content creating, getting this flexibility of getting passive income and different streams of income from my talents and hobbies, being this one-man army, recording these podcast episodes, writing these podcast episodes, editing them and releasing them, of making these videos on YouTube and filming them and editing them and releasing them, and continue to work on the Breath of Kin graphic novel and reviewing it and storyboarding it and paneling it and inking it and coloring it and self-publishing it and doing all those things. And this is stuff that I would rather not do alone. I would love to do it with other people, but just because that's what seems to be the right path and that's something I would like to do, it's easier said than done because so many other people are on different paths of life. There's so many conversations that I've had with people where we talk about the right way to do things, the right thing that we should do, the better way of living and interacting and doing. But just because we know it's the right thing doesn't make it easier for us to do it. So many people have good, great, awesome intentions, but we fold at actually following through with them. And that's where a lot of my hurt was just coming from, and a lot of disappointment. And again, I had hurt and disappointment from God that I had to navigate through, and I had to swim around that. I had to let myself float past that. And I feel that floating is taking me to a place where I gotta dare to dream. My head's above the water and there's no land. I don't see any land at all as far as my eyes can see, which can't be far because I need glasses. So let's say hypothetically I have glasses as my head is broken through the water, and now I am challenged to choose a direction to swim towards. And every day I'm making one tiny little stride, one tiny little swim towards a direction. And I've actually been seeing progress. And I've been seeing a return emotionally, a return mentally, and I've been frustrated and disappointed and annoyed by how little these steps are, how little these little swim paddle, the doggy paddle type of stuff is, man. It's like I'm swimming and I'm like, well, I could get a lot further if I had the right equipment. I can get a lot further if I was doing a real swim versus a doggy paddle. I can, like, you know, if my form was better, I can go a lot further if I was in a jet ski, obviously, right? I could go a lot further if I was in a plane, but it's taking it one little swim, one little step at a time, and not losing hope. And the whole time swimming on faith. The whole time just daring to dream, because dreaming is risky. Dreaming is intimidating. Not everyone will get your dreams, and not everyone can handle it. You shouldn't share your dreams with everyone, because there's dream killers out there. That's a real thing, and I've heard sermons on them before. Not many sermons, because I believe not many people actually dream. So through the social media platforms, through conversations, I present people the opportunity to tune in on my dreams, present people with the opportunity to support these dreams and watch it impact others. At the time of this recording, I have 9 patrons, and these are people who, according to Matthew 6:21, it says, "For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." These are people who believe in me. These are people who believe in Breath of Kin. These are people who believe in the podcast. These are people who believe in the streaming. These are the people who believe in my talents and hobbies and my heart, and believe that I'm going to be listening to God, that I'm going to be praying, that I'm going to be fasting, that I'm going to be putting in the work, that I won't give up, that I won't take advantage of their money, I won't take advantage of their time and their energy. These are people who are helping me out. And as they're helping me out, I'm getting the flippers I need to swim further. As they're helping me out, I have more drive and motivation and more energy to swim and swim further. I'm learning how to do the proper form to gain a better distance. I'm being reminded and taught how to survive in this open water. And the craziest thing is, there'll be people that you don't expect that will support you, but because you never put yourself out there, because you were too intimidated to dream in the first place, you'll never know that there are people who are willing to stand in your corner, who are willing to assist you. And you'll be surprised that the people that you thought would be in your corner, the people that you thought would be there to support and help you, are just staying idle. And be careful with that. Be careful not to let that influence your perceptions of others, where you're starting to look down at other people. You know, just really guard that. Like, you know, the daring to dream. Again, that's part of the thing of being risky, is that it's risky because it can jeopardize relationships. If someone can't handle your dream, a friendship can now be broken. If people don't support it the way that you want them to support it, the way that that you expect them to support it, that can harm your relationship with that person. And God has called us to be part of a community, have called us to have relationship. So dreaming is risky in that camp, but it's also risky in others. It's risky emotionally, it's risky mentally, physically, financially, spiritually, and thus that is why we need to be strategic. That is why we need to be patient and wise. Knowledge is having the information, right? Understanding is a deeper knowledge of that information, the why behind the information, and wisdom is applying that knowledge that you have. And one of the most wisest things I've ever heard is the serenity prayer, which goes like this: Lord, give me the courage to change the things that I can change, the serenity or peace to accept the things I cannot, and the wisdom to know the difference. Your perspective can either invest in your dreams or kill it. What you're consuming through your ears and eyes can influence and reveal to you what you can change and what you can't. Be careful not to consume lies. Go to credible chefs. Go to individuals that know what they're cooking, what they're doing, that are providing you with something of higher quality that will benefit your health. But you need to do the research to know what your body, your spiritual body, your mind, heart, and soul needs, what it's lacking, so that it can get the proper nutrients you need, so you have the energy to swim towards that dream. And that means you got to be vulnerable. You got to be authentic. You got to be honest. There are many encouraging stories out there. Oprah Winfrey, Steve Jobs, J.K. Rowling, Sylvester Stallone, all these different people that started in weird or dark and frustrating and just caged places. And these are people that had experienced insane testimony. And the same can happen to you. You can experience a random breakthrough moment, a tough, long season, and then just like that, things shift, things change for the better. All because you didn't quit. Didn't mean you didn't cry. Didn't mean you didn't shout. Didn't mean you thought about giving up. You just didn't quit. Thinking about doing something and doing something are two different things. So if you have a dream and you're just sitting on it, or you keep talking about this great idea, but not really putting in the work, the blood, sweat, and tears, then it's just going to stay a dream and it's not going to produce any fruit. So just understand that your present reality isn't the end of your story. Dare to dream. Again, it's risky, but worth it if you don't quit. You can take breaks, but even that makes things even riskier. But rest is essential, right? Rest isn't risky. Rest is an essential part of the process. Be careful who you share your dream with, because wishing others the best is a rare sight. There are many people who don't want to see you win, or they just can't see you win. And a lot of the times it's nothing personal. They just can't see it. They just can't see it. You and I have only one life here on earth, and I don't want neither of us to waste it. I don't want any of us to regret it. So be productive in wandering, be productive in thinking, in dreaming, in imagining, in feeling, in taking inventory, in praying, in fasting. Be productive by doing those things that I had just mentioned, and see where you may be floating towards. And you might say, well, what if I'm sinking and not floating? Well, if you take the right inventory, you'll realize that there may be things tying you down, pulling you down. There may be things that are weighing you down. You may realize you have some rope burn because you're tied to some immense weight and pressure that's trying to sink you to the bottom, dark ocean floor. And it's God that's going to help you get rid of those ropes. He will send you the right thing, the right person, the right event to cut those ropes loose, to rid you of that weight, and to help you float up. And then God's going to have to resuscitate you. He's going to breathe into you new life, new air, taking all those fluids that you're just swollen up with that's been drowning you and consuming you, so that you can have fresh breath and restore your energy, so that you can start swimming in the direction that He's called you to swim in. I hope and pray that this podcast finds you well, that you leave listening to this more encouraged and motivated and challenged than when you came on in, than when you came to start listening. I'll be praying for you. And with that being said, I'll leave you with this question. Would you like to continue? Thank you, everyone. Take it easy and Godspeed.